All right, so today I want to talk about form validation and specifically the HTML and CSS part of it. I'm going to do a second part to this video where I'm going to talk about the JavaScript and how we can do custom validation in conjunction with the stuff that's built in. So looking at the HTML attributes that go into the various form elements, the first half of this list is stuff that I've talked about in previous videos, but the bottom half, this is stuff that I don't believe I've covered much or at all in other videos. So I want to talk about these and make sure everybody understands why there are so many attributes that you can add into form elements, and why very often in tutorials and videos and even written tutorials online, you'll see very few elements. People sort of put the minimum in there to create them. They'll say, okay, we need ID, we need value, and let's add a type and go on from there. But there's actually a lot of stuff. If you're building a consumer-facing website, you should include a lot of these attributes. So let's look at these and see what they mean. Coming down into the form itself, we've got our input with a whole bunch of stuff that we normally have. Placeholder, this is one that shows the text here, but as soon as I click on this, this text is going to disappear and be replaced with whatever I type. If there's nothing there in what I'm typing, it's going to be just empty. So the first time we click on that, that's going to be empty. And same thing with email. Now, I've got something else inside of here. There's one CSS thing I'm going to show first, then I'm going to come back to the HTML elements. And that is the focus pseudo-class is something that you can add onto any element. So when you click on the element, you can style the element because it currently has focus. Now this works for links, it works for form elements. There's another one related to focus called focus within that lets you actually style the parent. So whatever element is containing the thing that's got the focus. Here, when I use my tab key or my mouse, I can click on side of here. You'll see I'm styling the paragraph that contains this thing. If I tab to the next field, I can do this to enhance which part of the form is currently selected. And it's going to help users to understand what part of the form they're filling out, whether they've got vision difficulties or whether it's just an average everyday person who's filling out the form. This is just a little enhancement. And you can put whatever CSS properties you want combined with this. I'm taking the color here, I'm brightening the color just slightly. I'm adding a text shadow on it. I'm adding a background color on it. The way I did this was I've got some default styling for the paragraphs that contain all the input elements. They're set to display flex, so it's just stacking things inside of here. If we look at the password example, you can see I've got a whole bunch of stuff inside of here. These are stacked vertically. And then this part right here, the underlay, this is the part that we're going to use to slide this color in, or that's what I'm calling it, is the underlay. In order to do this, we need to use the before pseudo element to create some empty content, give it a background color. We can see here there's got a background color, and I'm just going to slide this in from the side. So when the default styling is applied, position relative, that lets us put this content in position absolute, so it's contained inside this space. And it would normally fill up this thing. If I put these top, right, bottom, left to 0, I'm going to fill in the entire paragraph. Now, the z-index, I'm lifting it up slightly off the page, and I'm doing that so that I can put the content in behind it. So I'm giving this a z-index of 1, and I can put the -1, which is going to force this content to go behind the paragraph. Overflow hidden, just in case my sizing's off or there's something that happens that expands it, then it's contained inside of the area that the paragraph is. Now, because I'm using Flexbox, I had to put the z-index set to 1 here. Without the Flexbox, sometimes you can get away with just using -1 here without specifying a value, but to be safe, we'll keep it in here. Now the color for my text, this is what I'm going to do with the label. By default, it's this color, which is very close to white. But when I apply the focus within, meaning this element, the paragraph element here, this has the actual focus applied to it. So the paragraph, which is the parent, something inside it has the focus. So the parent paragraph has the element with focus. We're changing the color to white, and we're putting a text shadow on the paragraph. Now this is the label. So what we're going to do here is we're going to get the label to inherit these properties, the text shadow and the color, from the parent, which is the paragraph. Now the animation that's taking place, I'm using transform and transition. So as I move through my form, one element is losing focus, the other one is gaining it. And as I do that, I'm moving it off negative 110%. So I'm moving it off this side of the page, off the left-hand side of the page. And I'm taking, this could be any value that you want, 200 milliseconds. I can say 0.2 seconds, anything like that. You choose what is the most appropriate speed for your animations. You want something that's fairly quick. Okay, so we have the animation taking place. When the focus is applied, then that before element, this one right here, what we're doing is we're changing the translate from negative 110%, so off the left-hand side of the page, to where it would normally be rendered, which is right behind the paragraph. So it's sliding in from the left and underneath our content. And here we have the label is using the color and text shadow. It's inheriting those from the paragraph. So if the input element has the focus, then the paragraph is getting these values, which are being inherited by the label. When the paragraph doesn't have focus, it's going to be using its default right here, no text shadow specified, and this is the color. Okay, so I just wanted to show that so you understood why I was getting these highlights as I was moving through the form. All right, jumping back to the HTML, talking about the attributes. So we have placeholder, that's our text that we've got showing up in these first two elements. Then we've got a number of things like this. We've got required, read-only, disabled. So with required, read-only, and disabled, required means when you submit the form, or we can actually tie into this with our JavaScript, which is going to be the next video. But when you submit the form, if it's required, you're going to be asked the question, hey, do you want to, or you need to actually provide a value for this. So I haven't typed anything in here. There's something. If I remove it, it's just the placeholder. When I click send, this is the browser saying, hey, you need to fill this out. It was a required field. And anywhere that I'm putting this required, that's the message I'm going to get. Read-only means that the person is not allowed to edit. So we can say, let's see the value. I'll just put something in there, temp. There we go. So I can double click and I can copy that and I can paste it, but I cannot select in there and I cannot enter. So I can give it focus, but I can't actually select the text and start typing there. So it is read-only. If we change this to disabled, similar thing, but you can see that will change the styling and it changes this dramatically. Similar purposes, and we can tie into the read-only with our CSS. So that's why we generally tend to do read-only here. Disabled I will use on buttons, but I won't tend to use inside of text inputs and things like that. Read-only is a much better choice for that. And then we can style as we want. Okay, so we've got required, read-only, disabled. We've got min and max. Now this is for numbers and step. So those ones, let's come down here and I've got a field for number of pets. And you can see there's a arrow, the stepper right here, the arrows up and down. The cell phone is also a numeric field, but it doesn't have those steppers. And if we scroll down to those, here we go, here's the cell phone. The cell phone, I left it as typed text because I want the user to be able to type this without the stepper showing up there. On mobile, if you've set this to type equals number, you're going to get the stepper, you're going to get another control that opens up. If you leave it as text, the person can actually type inside there. And with input mode numeric, that's what's going to change the keyboard to make it easier for them to type inside of there. So type is text, we get a normal input. Type number. On mobile, you're going to get a different interface. So this is much better for the user to use. So we can come in here and we can say min. Okay, if this was going to be a number field, like down here with the number of pets, this would be an appropriate place to say min. So here's the smallest number, here's the biggest number that I want them to enter, and if I wanted to jump in increments, we could say step is, and if I said 2, it means I'm only going to be allowed to put in even numbers here. Let's do this. Let's say 0 to 50. Step is 2, so 0, 2, 4, 6, 8. Those are the only numbers that are going to be allowed as valid numbers. And then we'll go back up here to the cell phone. This one, min, that's not really going to make much sense. There's not a specific phone number minimum. It's more the number of digits, so it's the length that we have. So we could put in here a max length and a min length. But for something like a phone number, it's like a pattern that we're looking to match. A person can type in anything you want as long as it's digits. So let's do that. We'll use the pattern attribute. And this one allows us to put in a regular expression. Now, if you don't know what regular expressions are, I've got a link at the top there and down in the description as well to my video on regular expressions. There's a couple of videos actually on regular expressions. They're both in the description. You can take a look at that and see how they work. But we're really just defining a pattern. So I'm going to put a simple one in here. I'm going to say digits, and you can give me between 7 and 14, we'll say. This is my pattern. Type anything you want as long as it's a number, and you've got between 7 and 14 digits. So that's the pattern that I'm going to apply here. Now, email, that's a better place to put in the length. So in here, we could say max length, or actually even better than that, let's go to the password. Max length and min length. So the password has to be at least 8, but it can't be longer than 20 characters long. That's going to be the range that we're going to allow for the password, and we'll see it's also required. There we go. The email, well, there is some email matching that takes place in the browser, but I'm actually going to do that one with the JavaScript. We're going to talk about how that gets validated and how we can enhance the browser validation of an email address. Okay, so we've got all these different attributes that are going to provide restrictions on what the data is that we enter. And that's great. When I come in here and I send, okay, this is required, you've got to fill this in. It wasn't meeting those requirements. But with the CSS, we can tie into the various failures, the ones that fail the minimum maximum length restrictions, the ones that fail required, the ones that fail, let's put required in here for that. Because this is type email, it's going to have that restriction as well. We can also say required. So I'm going to come in here, my email address. If I just put some text, boom, okay, I need to fill that one in. Okay, we put something in there. Now it's telling me, okay, you've got to put an @ sign and enter the part that comes after it. Okay, so it's accepting that as a valid one. So we're going to come back and fix that with JavaScript a little bit later in the next video. Password. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 characters, but I need 8. There we go. It's going to tell me that. Okay, so there's number 8. Let's try this now. Yeah, we're good. Okay, so we passed all the validation that we had there. Cell phone, if it's null, like I left it blank, that's okay. If in here, all I put was a pattern, it doesn't fail a pattern if you leave it blank. if I had required, now, put something there, put something here, there's the password, cell number. If I do this now, you have to fill this in. Okay, well I put, let's say 3 digits. Okay, not enough. Got to match the requested pattern. So let's put in here 456 7890. There we go. We got a 10-digit phone number. That's good. The form will submit. All right, let's jump into the CSS now. I've got down here at the bottom a whole bunch of the various fields, pseudo-classes that we can use on these fields. So focus, simple enough. When we're tabbing through here, we're using the focus within to style the background, but we can also apply styling to this. So we could say, when it's got focus, the background color is going to be gold. Okay, there we are. As we step through this, we're getting gold on the background. Read only. Again, if you want to style this, you want to make it look disabled, you can do that. Read-write is basically anything that is not read-only. Simple. Disabled, again, I use this for buttons, not as much for the input elements themselves. Required. Now, this isn't something where, hey, it's failing to be filled in. This is, have you marked it in the HTML with the attribute required? So it has the attribute. We can say border color, let's say red. There we go. We can see red on this one, red on this one, red on this one. Those 3 were marked as required. So we can do that. Optional. If it doesn't have required, it is an optional field. Placeholder shown. Okay, right here, these 2 have the placeholder shown. So we could do something where the background color is changed. Let's say light pink. There we go. We've got light pink because it's being shown. Of course, when you have focus on something, the focus overrides that. Placeholder. This is the text itself that is inside there. So I could do something like, I'm just picking random properties here, just so that we can see that they are being applied. There we go. So letter spacing. The placeholder text, you can actually style the placeholder text that's inside there, instead of just leaving it whatever default styling is. So that is a pseudo element, placeholder. Valid. So has it passed your validation? So we can change background color again. Let's do cornflower blue. So if it is past the validation, so this one's okay. We've got the stepper. You'll see it's going up through the even numbers here. So it's fine with that number. Cell phone, we haven't put anything in, but once we put in a long enough digit for the cell phone number, now it is valid. So it's getting this styling applied to it. Invalid, something that has failed the validation. So when we have those messages coming up, hey, you didn't fill in this field. Like right now, when I click send, this one, it's getting this applied to it. So that was the first one that failed the validation. That's why it's getting the message. We can apply some styling on this. Let's say something like border left 5 pixels, solid red. There we go. So we can see things that are failing the validation have the little red edge on them, like that. In range and out of range. This applies both to the length of the string as well as the min-max value and the step value. So down here, we've got a min number and a max number. We said 0 to 50, and as long as it's an even number, because the step was 2. So if I went in here and I changed this, I selected it and I typed in 13. There we go. It's focus, so it gets the yellow, but it's got the red. This is now invalid. It's an invalid one because the step value was 2, so it's only accepting even numbers. Out of range. So we can say, in addition to those other properties, let's say that we're going to set the border right to REM solid black. There we go. Just to have something there. Let's reload this page. No, that one's not coming up. What was one that we had that was too short? Cell phone. Oh, no, password. We had a length on it. Well, that one's not coming up. Okay, well, that's what these are supposed to apply to. There's something I'm missing there. I'm sure we'll get into it when I get into the JavaScript. What I would do with my CSS for something like a field that's failing validation is I tend to do things like this. If it's invalid, I'll do something like that. So the fields that are invalid will show up, and not just the color, but I'll also want to put a border, and I'll often shift the edge over here and I'll put an icon or something like that so it really stands out. We could also do the focus within. We can combine focus within with input invalid. So if the invalid is on the focused element, we can do something different with that. All right, so lots and lots and lots of things that you can combine. Like, I'm only using one at a time here, but you can combine things. So if something is invalid and out of range, you can combine these pseudo-classes to come up with your own styling to meet your specific circumstances. All right, so that's a lot of information. I hope that helps you out. You can use that as a reference. If you want copies of these files, the code is linked to from a code gist down in the description. And as always, thanks for watching.